We're live from New Delhi. You're watching TT India News, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds a phone call with US President Donald Trump. Prime Minister Modi welcomes the reduction in tariffs on made in India products and thanked President Trump for the decision. Iran and the USA to resume nuclear talks in Turkey on Friday after US President Donald Trump warned Iran of consequences. Bill and Hillary Clinton to testify in US House probe on Jeffrey Epstein, avoiding potential contempt vote. And France adopts the 2026 government budget on Monday after Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu survives no confidence motions. And on to the details now. India and the US have agreed to a trade deal under which Washington will bring down reciprocal tariff on Indian goods to 18% from the current 25%. President Donald Trump said on Monday after a phone conversation with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Later in a social media post on X, Prime Minister Modi said, and I quote, "Wonderful to speak with my dear friend President Trump. Delighted that made in India products will now have a reduced tariff of 18%. Big thanks to President Trump on behalf of the 1.4 billion people of India for this wonderful announcement. When two large economies and the world's largest democracies work together, it benefits our people and unlocks immense opportunities for mutually beneficial cooperation." Well, President Trump's leadership is vital for global peace, stability and prosperity. India fully supports his efforts for peace. I look forward to working closely with him to take our partnership to unprecedented heights, unquote. Also, President Trump, on his part, termed his conversation with Prime Minister Modi as an honor and termed him as one of his greatest friends and a powerful and respected leader of India. He said that the amazing relationship between the US and India will be even stronger going forward. He added that he and Prime Minister Modi are two people that get things done, something that cannot be said for most. Meanwhile, the two leaders, according to Trump, also talked about ending the conflict with Russia and Ukraine. And for more on the deal, we have Jessica Taneja joining us from New Delhi. Well, Jessica, both leaders stressed on trust, friendship, democratic values. How does this shift the India-US relationship beyond trade, and what does it mean in practical terms for technology, security, and most importantly, global stability?
Well, the trade relationship, as you know, Lipakshi, has been important. United States is an important trading partner of India, a country with whom we have a trade surplus. And with the limitations of the deals and the tariff uncertainties prevailing in the past, it had led to certain concern within the MSMEs and also other big industries, especially in the manufacturing sector. You talk about textiles to leather to jewelry and gems. All of them have raised concerns in the past about the possibility of looking at 50% tariff, which would be long-term. Now that we understand they are short-term, but beyond this deal, of course, lies the fact that India remains a trusted partner for the United States. And it has been improving since you recall from 2007, from the nuclear deal to now. It has seen an upward trajectory, not just in terms of trade, but also engagement and also technology. United States has been an important partner for India in that sense. And now looking at cloud computing and AI data centers, which is also quite important in terms of tech and the kind of tax benefits that the AI data center companies have been able to get from the recent budget, goes on to indicate that there are, ways that the Indian government is trying to ensure that American tech, as well as that relationship, especially in the emerging age of artificial intelligence, it's important, crucial to tie up with countries who are working in that direction. And since India is to host one of the biggest artificial intelligence summit attended by more than 15 world leaders and more than hundreds and thousands of participants who'd be now flocking New Delhi in that second week of February. So expect a lot there. And now with this trade deal coming in, it certainly goes on to show that it's not just a moment for the markets to rejoice a little, but it's come as a relief for a lot of these industries that I mentioned earlier, who were at a point where their businesses would either not be able to absorb those kind of external shocks. And even though India is a huge consumption-driven economy, there is only so much that these small manufacturing sectors could have done to sort of diversify those supply chains. These are crucial ones. Now, let's also tell our viewers that not all sectors were tariffed. Looking at pharmaceuticals and electronics, because these are important supply chains for America. And the supply of generic drugs is something what America has been importing from India, and that made a huge part of the deal. So they were not tariffed, but the other sectors in terms of textiles, also looking at gems and jewelry, which is around $10 billion worth of exports to the US. So quite significant in that sense. And even fertilizers, which was around $6 billion. So looking at these small trade components, but the impact was felt huge because 50% tariffs was just not something that these companies would have been able to sustain for long-term supply chains and for orders in the future. So this has come as a relief for many.
All right, Jessica, also talk about the timing of the deal and how do you see this deal generally impacting at large?
Well, timing of the deal, I'd say, is interesting because we just concluded the India-EU trade deal, something that was in the offing since 2007 and finally concluded with much deliberation and conviction and consensus. And words fall short on how important this deal was for both the European Union and India, particularly for the European Union, given the kind of transatlantic relationship shifts that we were noticing from Davos to Greenland to NATO internal, disagreements that were being fronted, and possibly then context building on that, the European Union President Ursula von der Leyen, along with the European Union Council, Antonio Costa, were in New Delhi, all holding hands with the Indian Prime Minister, ensuring that India would continue to remain an important partner. So in that sense, India has had quite a few deals in the last 1 year, starting with the deal with the United Kingdom, the free trade agreement. That was quite significant, as that was also in discussions for many years. And after that, you had the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement with Oman, the FTA with New Zealand, the list goes on. And then you finally have the biggest deal that was long awaited.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jessica, for all that information. And moving on, the National Democratic Alliance meeting is underway in New Delhi to take stock of the Union Budget 2026 and chart the political and public outreach strategy around it. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Union Home Minister Amit Shah, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, BJP's National President Nitin Nabin, along with other NDA leaders and MPs are attending the meeting. The meeting comes 2 days after Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented the budget in the lower house of the Parliament. Well, the National Democratic Alliance meeting is underway in New Delhi right now to take stock of the Union Budget 2026 and chart the political and public outreach strategy around it. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Union Home Minister Amit Shah, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, BJP National President Nitin Nabin, along with other NDA leaders and MPs are attending the meeting. In fact, to tell you, the meeting comes 2 days after Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented the budget in the lower house of the Parliament. As we told you, the National Democratic Alliance meeting is right now underway in New Delhi, which is taking stock of the Union Budget 2026 and to chart the political and public outreach strategy around it. You can see Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Union Home Minister Amit Shah, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, BJP National President Nitin Nabin, along with other senior NDA leaders and MPs attending the meeting. In fact, to tell our viewers, the meeting comes just 2 days after Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman had presented the budget in the lower house of the Parliament on the 1st of February. And now let's go back to our top story, which is the trade deal between India and United States. India and United States have agreed to a trade deal under which Washington will bring down reciprocal tariff on Indian goods to 18% from the current 25%. Let's take a look at timeline of India-US trade deal. Well, Prime Minister Modi agreed to work towards limited trade deal by year end and to expand bilateral trade to $500 billion by 2030 in Washington in February last year. Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal met US counterpart Howard Lutnick. US officials travelled to Delhi for further discussions. India, April 2025, US VP J.D. Vance visited both sides, finalized the terms of reference for talks in Washington. May 2025, Piyush Goyal holds more discussions. 3rd June 2025, US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said progress was being made. Trump too said a big trade deal with India was coming. On 4th of July 2025, India said would not rush into trade deals merely to meet deadlines. Also, national interest would remain supreme. 5th round of talks held in mid-July, August 2025. US imposed 25% tariff on Indian exports plus an additional 25% levy. In September 2025, Trump said negotiations were continuing to speak with Modi soon. Prime Minister Modi calls two countries close friends and natural partners. November 2025, negotiations continued quietly with no major public announcements from either side. In December 2025, Prime Minister Modi announced a very warm and engaging phone call with Trump. In January 2026, new US envoy to India, Sergio Gore, said two sides were actively engaged in dialogue. And in February 2026, India-US trade deal reached. Announcement followed a phone call with Prime Minister Modi. And for more, we have Amritpal Singh joining us from New Delhi on this. Well, Amrit, with India and the EU signing the FTA, mother of all trade deals, just a few days back, and India's trade pacts with others, how does this US deal fit into India's broader global trade strategy? And how will this deal affect India's position in the Indo-Pacific overall?
This is another deal with another one of the biggest economy of the world. India and the US have a strong relationship. Though there was an overhang in the past 1 year after President Trump assumed the presidency for the second time, threatening tariffs and then imposing tariffs, including the penalty of 25%, raising the reciprocal and the penalty to tariffs to about 50%. Now, with both sides having agreed to strengthen the relationship, also, as you say, deals with other countries like the UK FTA, the India-EU FTA. This will, boost the Indian economy, Indian exports, manufacturing in India. The market sentiment is likely to stem the outflows. If you look at the market sentiment this morning, a surge of 5%, which hasn't been seen in intraday trading in the early opening trade in the last 5 years. So all that combined, it augurs well for the Indian manufacturing and also India's trade relations, investment relations with the rest of the world. Lipakshi.
Right, Amrit. A lot of optimism indeed about the deal. The Prime Minister himself called this a win for Make in India. What are the immediate benefits, if you talk about, for the farmers and small businesses, and what future opportunities could this deal unlock for India's economy as well?
We'll have to wait for the details of the deal to emerge to know, what is the tariff structure, though 18% both sides have confirmed. But on, key sectors, what would be the breakup? Or also, for the imports, the India tariffs, will it be 0% as claimed by President Trump and not, there has been no statement by the Indian side of whatever has been put out in the public domain, right from the Prime Minister to the other ministers who've spoken about or tweeted about the deal. We'll have to wait and see the details of this deal. But overall, if the 25% penalty has indeed gone, and the 25 to 18% will boost, manufacturers, especially the immediate gains could be seen in the textile sector. It could be seen in auto ancillaries, in specialty chemicals. It could be seen in seafood. So these are the immediate benefits. Long-term advantage would, of course, be, resilience of the diversification and resilience of the supply chains, your trade with other countries, not putting your eggs in just one basket, but trade with that. Then the competitive advantage you get over your competitors in Asia. You've got one of the lowest tariff rates if you compare it with other countries, especially China. So it augurs well for the Indian economy and manufacturing per se. Lipakshi.
Right, Amrit. Thank you so much for all those details. And in fact, the industry leaders, market experts and economists have welcomed the deal, terming it a historic and win-win agreement that will boost bilateral economic ties between the two nations, improve market sentiment and strengthen India's position in the global trade. Terming it as monumental, saying deal will accelerate bilateral trade and strategic partnership. Take a listen.
It is a very monumental deal. India and the U.S. have both been in negotiations for a very long time. There was the issue of India doing Russian oil purchases. So those punitive tariffs have been removed. The White House has confirmed that 25% extra tariffs for the purchase of Russian oil has been removed.
It's a win for the U.S. and win for India, and this will drive the trade in a much more expedited manner between the two countries. It sends a message that the relationship is back on the track. It sends a message that this is the beginning, and both countries will partner in critical mineral. Both countries will partner on AI. Both countries will partner on the Quads arena. So what we are seeing is a trade is, yes, transactional, but we will go beyond that to ensure that there's a win-win for India and the United States.
I think it'll give the two sides something to be very happy about. It'll provide, I think for a good news story, so to speak, at a moment when these high-level engagements between the U.S. and India in recent months have so often been, feature these caveats about how the relationship is in tough shape and that the two sides need to try to work to make things better. Now you have a success story. It's an indication that this relationship is getting closer to being back where both sides, at the end of the day, want it to be.
First reaction was, wow, it's finally here. It's taken too long, and I'm just glad that we've got an announcement of a deal. I think the two sides have been close for months. The trade negotiators on both sides have been working at this. It appeared last July that they were very close. Things went off the rails at that time. It was largely on the Russian oil purchases issue, but there were other problems as well. So, it's been clear for some time that to get this across the finish line, it would require the two leaders to speak. And that's what happened this morning. So I think their perspectives match up well. The two leaders are on the same page, and there is truly a trade agreement here that's been announced.
And External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar welcomed the announcements on India-US bilateral trade. In a social media post on X, Dr. Jaishankar said, and I quote, "This will create more jobs, spur growth and promote innovation in both economies. It will strengthen Make in India endeavours and encourage trusted technology ties. The opportunities in our economic engagement are truly vast and we are confident of realising them. A robust economic relationship is the strongest foundation for our strategic partnership, unquote. And Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman also termed the India-US deal as good news for Made in India products, thanking both Prime Minister Modi and the US President for this development. The Finance Minister said that people of both sides will be benefited. And Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal too congratulated Prime Minister Modi and President Trump as well as to the people of India and the United States on the landmark trade agreement. In a social media post, the Commerce Minister said this reflects the power of two like-minded, fair trading democracies working together for shared prosperity. He further said that this agreement unlocks unprecedented opportunities for farmers, MSMEs, entrepreneurs and skilled workers to make in India for the world, design in India for the world and innovate in India for the world. In fact, it will help India get technology from the US. He further added it's not just a trade deal, it's a historic turning point that will reshape India-US relations and accelerate our journey towards Viksit Bharat 2047, unquote. Meanwhile, Indian equity markets staged a sharp rebound on Tuesday morning after the announcement on the long-awaited India-US trade agreement. The Sensex surged more than 3,600 points at the open, vaulting past the 85,000 mark after ending Monday's session at 81,666.46. The Nifty 50 mirrored the rally, jumping nearly 1,200 points from its previous close of 25,088.40. Sectoral gains were broad-based, led by strong buying in reality, auto, consumer durables and IT stocks, which climbed 4.47%, 3.78%, 3.69% and 3.04% respectively. And DD India's Shama Mishra joins us from Mumbai on this. Well, Shama, markets have opened with one of the strongest single-day gains in recent times. How much of this rally is purely driven by the India-US trade deal, and do analysts believe this momentum is sustainable beyond today?
For starters, we understand that the markets were really waiting for a good news, and after the budget days, we did see that this particular rally, which was going downwards, has now changed its direction and it's going upwards. There have been so many sectors which have gained from it, which will be gaining from this India-US trade deal, and that is why we are seeing so many gains, such a huge gain in these sectors. Apart from that, we are also seeing Sensex and Nifty, both of them trading in green zone, and we can say it's a sustained one because since this is a huge news and we were waiting for this particular news for months and months, and now that the governments of both the countries have been able to crack this deal, it is going to be a sustained one because this is going to largely benefit the people of India because there was so much uncertainty, and we were talking about this particular uncertainty, tariff tension, tariff geopolitical uncertainties in so many events, including the Reserve Bank of India policy, even including the budget one. So, it is important that we have such kind of deals. And now that it is confirmed from both the sides, it's confirmed from both the ends, it is going to be beneficial for a large amount, for a large population, for a large, chunks of people who are dependent who are completely dependent on the exports, imports, and they were wanting their products to be sent to US. They were dealing in that particular area since a very long time. So this has come at a very opportune time. And we also heard during the economic survey in the budget that India is a bright spot, and India is a place where a lot of international investments are getting attracted. with this deal, we are expecting that the confidence would be renewed, and not just the domestic, but the FIIs also would be putting in money in the stock markets, and Indian story of growth and Atmanirbharta.
All right. Also, Shama, global risk sentiment has clearly improved after the trade deal. Are foreign institutional investors already showing signs of renewed interest in Indian equities? And could this mark a turning point for capital inflows as well?
We have seen this pattern so far, of late, that the FIIs were pulling out, and that is why the markets were not performing good. Now, this particular deal has come in. We have also seen several other deals, bilateral deals of India with other countries, including the UK-India, the EU-India FTA. Apart from that, we had earlier also seen the Australia one. There have been so many deals that are coming in the kitty of India, and the Indian government is actually negotiating it well on the larger part of the population, keeping in mind that the important elements such as the agriculture or dairy is untouched, unaffected by these deals, and it remains strong. So overall, these deals are largely beneficial for India, as well as, we are also talking about Make in India. We are also talking about Atmanirbharta. We are talking about Viksit Bharat by 2047. So all these deals will be helpful. And as we are talking about the growth story of India, it is getting stronger. Definitely, a lot of people, a lot of FIIs would be coming in India. And this was, it was a short while back when the FIIs were putting in heavy money in the Indian markets. And if you see the Indian markets return, they have been phenomenal. But due to, as we say, that markets run on the elements of emotion,
right,
and they don't like surprises, they like continuity. With this particular deal, markets are expecting that there will be continuity, and the market would be largely benefiting from the confidence of investors and the confidence of Indian growth story.
All right, so growth story of India definitely growing out there. Thank you so much, Shama, for all that information. And External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar is on a visit to United States till 4th of February, where he will participate in the Critical Minerals Ministerial convened by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. The ministerial will focus on supply chain resilience, clean energy transitions and strategic cooperation in critical minerals. Now, during the visit, the External Affairs Minister will also hold meetings with senior members of the U.S. administration. And news from the Parliament now. Both houses of Parliament are scheduled to continue the discussion on the motion of thanks to the President's address during the ongoing budget session on Tuesday. In the lower house, the motion was moved by Sarbananda Sonowal and seconded by Tejaswi Surya on Monday, while in the upper house, the BJP MP Sadanand Master moved the motion of thanks. The motion comes in response to President Draupadi Murmu's address to the joint sitting of both the houses to mark the beginning of the budget session on the 28th of January. And some weather updates now from parts of India. First up, from National Capital Region, Delhi NCR continues to wake up to a foggy morning with the visibility dropping across large stretches of the cities. The Indian Met Department attributed the phenomena to a strong western disturbance influencing North India, which resulted in an unusual combination of dense fog, untimely showers and cold, gusty winds. The conditions follow a wet Sunday when light to moderate showers lashed parts of central and south Delhi, intensifying winter chill across the region. Also, given the prevailing conditions, the IMD issued a yellow alert for northern part of the country, including Delhi, Haryana, Punjab, Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand for Tuesday, while an orange alert is in place for east and west Uttar Pradesh. However, IMD shows no warning in place from Wednesday for most of the northern states. Now, due to dense fog, authorities have also warned of major disruptions to road traffic and aviation services. Delhi Airport is in an advisory has said that dense fog conditions might lead to delays or disruptions. It also added that airport authorities are working closely with all stakeholders to minimize inconvenience to the passengers. It has thus asked that for latest flight status, passengers must contact their respective airlines before arriving at the airport. And snowfall and sub-zero temperatures cannot dampen the spirit of residents in the high Himalayan regions. These days, when most parts of Lahaul, Spiti and Kulu Valley are covered in snow, local residents are busy celebrating the Halla festival. Every evening, people step out of their homes with torches, circle the entire village, and until late at night, invoke the local deities through traditional dance and songs. The Halda festival is being celebrated with great enthusiasm in Manali as well. And the Amrit Udyan in New Delhi opens for public viewing from today till March 31st, offering visitors a chance to experience one of India's most celebrated green spaces. The iconic gardens will be open 6 days a week from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. with the last entry permitted at 5 p.m. The gardens will remain closed on Monday for maintenance and on March 4th on account of Holi. Entry to the garden will be free of cost. However, visitors will be required to book their tickets exclusively through the online portal. No on-the-spot booking facility will be available this year. Apart from Amrit Udyan, the Rashtrapati Bhavan and Rashtrapati Bhavan Museum will also remain open to visitors from Tuesday to Sunday. And time now for a short break. We'll be back in a while.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Hello. Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout ho gaya.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching TT India News. I'm Lepakshi Quran. And moving on, Iran and the United States will resume nuclear talks on Friday in Turkey after US President Donald Trump warned Iran of consequences if a deal was not reached. Now, US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi will meet in Istanbul on Friday in an effort to revive diplomacy over a long-running dispute about Iran's nuclear program. Representatives from Saudi Arabia and Egypt are also likely to participate in the meeting. US President Trump has maintained he is hopeful that Washington will work something out with Iran, but also warned on Monday that bad things would happen if no deal is reached.
I can't tell you what I'm going to do because right now, we have a tremendous force going there, just like we did in Venezuela, even bigger. And they'll be there soon. And I'd like to see a deal negotiated. I don't know that that's going to happen. But, I mean, if I knew I wouldn't be able to, I wouldn't tell you. I'd be very foolish if I would tell you. But right now we're talking to them. We're talking to Iran. And if we could work something out, that'd be great. And if we can't, probably bad things would happen.
Well, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi on Monday said his country was ready for diplomacy with the United States.
We are ready for diplomacy, but they should know that diplomacy with threats, intimidation and pressure is not compatible. Diplomacy has its own ideology.
The meeting would be the first direct talks between US and Iranian officials since April last year, before Israel and the US carried out strikes on Iranian nuclear and missile sites during a brief conflict in June. And moving on, France adopted a 2026 government budget on Monday following months of fraught negotiations after Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu survived the latest in a string of no-confidence motions. Well, the budget adopted on Monday after 4 months of political deadlock over government spending includes measures to bring France's deficit down and boost military spending. Lawmakers rejected two no-confidence motions from the hard left and far right parties tabled after the Premier on Friday forced his budget through Parliament without a vote for the third and final time. Motions tabled by France Unbowed, the Greens and other left-wing groups drew 260 of the 289 votes needed to oust the government. The far-right motion secured only 135 votes. Budget negotiations have consumed the French political class for nearly 2 years after President Emmanuel Macron's 2024 snap election delivered a hunger parliament, just as a massive hole in public finances made belt tightening more urgent. And the U.S. Congress has stayed up a Tuesday vote on a spending bill to end the government shutdown, following a House committee vote late on Monday. U.S. President Donald Trump urged the House of Representatives on Monday to swiftly adopt a spending bill and end the three-day government shutdown. In his Truth Social post, Trump said there can be no changes at this time to the legislation and called for its immediate passage.
Well, I spoke with Speaker Johnson, I spoke with Leader Thune, and I think they're pretty close to a resolution. You know, we were at 5.6% GDP, and we lost 1.5 points because of the 42-day shutdown. Think of that. We would have been at 7. Nobody ever saw a number like 7.
Well, late on Friday, the Senate passed a package clearing 5 outstanding funding bills to cover most federal agencies through September, along with a 2-week stopgap measure to keep DHS operating while lawmakers negotiate immigration enforcement policy. If the House approves the Senate deal, lawmakers would then have just 2 weeks to negotiate a full-year DHS funding bill. Well, the shutdown followed a breakdown in negotiations because of Democratic anger over the killing of 2 protesters in Minneapolis by federal immigration agents, which derailed talks over new money for the Department of Homeland Security. And moving on to the latest in Epstein files now, former U.S. President Bill Clinton and his wife Hillary Clinton, the former Secretary of State, have agreed to testify in the congressional investigation into late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. It comes days before the Republican-led U.S. House of Representatives was expected to vote to hold both Clintons in criminal contempt over their months-long resistance of legal summons. Bill Clinton's photo appears in Epstein files released by the Department of Justice, although the former Democratic president has denied any wrongdoing. Also, the U.S. government's release of more than 3 million documents related to Jeffrey Epstein has raised further questions about the ties of 3 prominent figures in British public life. Well, the former Prince Andrew, his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson and Peter Mandelson, the former UK ambassador to the US, are all listed multiple times in the latest trove of Epstein files. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Keir Starmer has urged Andrew Mountbatten Windsor to testify before the US Congress, while Mandelson, who resigned from the Labour Party on Sunday, is facing calls from leading figures, including Starmer, to retire from the House of Lords as well. And US President Donald Trump on Monday announced the creation of a critical mineral reserve, aiming to protect manufacturers from supply disruptions. Now, Trump said the $12 billion reserve will be the first ever stockpile of critical minerals and will be used to ensure that American businesses and workers are never harmed by any shortage. Trump also said he expects the loan used to form the reserve to generate a profit from interest. U.S. Secretary of the Interior Doug Burgum said that 11 additional countries will be announced for the initiative later this week.
Just as we have long had a strategic petroleum reserve and a stockpile of critical minerals for national defense, we're now creating this reserve for American industry, so we don't have any problems. This historic initiative will combine $10 billion in export-import bank financing with $2 billion in private sector financing, and we even expect the American taxpayer to make a profit from the interest on the loan used to start the Project Vault. It's an amazing thing. They've been talking about it for years.
The initiative will be funded by $10 billion in export-import bank financing and an additional $2 billion of financing from the private sector. The initiative is being positioned as an industrial backstop, similar to an emergency reserve intended to cushion manufacturers from sudden shortages, export controls, or sharp price swings in minerals central to advanced manufacturing, defense supply chains, and the clean energy transition. And Venezuelan interim President Delcy Rodriguez met with U.S. envoy Laura Dogu as both nations work to re-establish relations severed in 2019. The meeting took place at the Miraflores Presidential Palace to discuss the work agenda between the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and the United States. Rodriguez met with the new head of the United States diplomatic mission, Laura Dogu, in Caracas to address the issue of transition, economic recovery, and reconciliation. Key discussions addressed topics of mutual interest, and a significant oil export deal was reached amidst political changes in Venezuela as well. And U.S. President Donald Trump said on Monday that Mexico would stop sending oil to Cuba as he ramped up a pressure campaign on the Caribbean nation. Trump told reporters in the White House Oval Office that Mexico would cease sending Cuba oil.
It's a failed nation now, and they're not getting any money from Venezuela, and they're not getting any money from anywhere. It's a failed nation. Mexico is going to cease sending them oil. So I'd like to take care of the people that are here from Cuba. You know, we have many people that came from Cuba that were thrown out of Cuba or that fled Cuba.
Well, Cuba's Deputy Foreign Minister Carlos Fernandez de Cosio said the U.S. government was aware that Cuba was ready to have a serious, meaningful and responsible dialogue. Cosio's statements represent the first hint from Cuba that the two sides are in conversation after tensions flared earlier this month between the two countries following the U.S. capture of Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. Meanwhile, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum's administration said on Sunday it would seek to ship oil to Cuba for humanitarian reasons without seeking confrontation. She also said aid would consist of other products for the coming week. And Costa Rica's President-elect Laura Fernandez on Monday pledged to lead a government of national unity and continue the populist policies of outgoing President Rodrigo Chavez, whom she offered a senior cabinet position starting in May. While people expressed optimism that Fernandez would govern effectively and continue the policies of outgoing President Rodrigo Chavez, others stressed confidence in the electoral process and expectations for the results. With 88.43% of ballots counted, Fernandez had nearly half of the vote, enough to clear the 40% threshold needed to win outright and avoid an April 5th runoff. And in Portugal, dozens of people queued in Leiria to get roof tiles to repair their homes on Monday after a week of storms that left many municipalities under a state of emergency. Now, the country is bracing for more bad weather in the coming weeks with floods and heavy rain alerts issued in central Portugal. Storm Kristin swept across central mainland Portugal last on Wednesday, bringing wind gusts of over 200 kilometers per hour and torrential rain as well. The storm killed at least 6 people, damaged homes and cut power to hundreds of thousands. Early on Sunday, Portugal's government approved a €2.5 billion package of loans and incentives to help people and businesses rebuild. And firefighters in Argentina's Chubut province fought wildfires that have burned around 50,000 hectares, hoping for rain and cooler weather to help. The fires closed 2 provincial roads and pushed firefighters to retreat for safety. Patagonia forest fires have destroyed an area more than twice the size of Buenos Aires, stirring criticism over austerity measures under President Javier Milei that have significantly cut aid resources. According to the Federal Emergency Agency, the fire in the provincial jurisdiction is now contained, but the blaze in Los Alices National Park continues to spread, consuming 24,000 hectares of native vegetation and pine forest. And some updates from West Asia now. Sick and wounded Gazans began crossing into Egypt to seek medical treatment on Monday after Israel permitted a limited reopening of Gaza's Rafah border post. The Rafah crossing is the sole route in or out for nearly all of Gaza's more than 2 million residents. It was largely shut for almost 2 years, and reopening it to allow even limited access to the outside world is one of the last steps required under the initial phase of a US-brokered ceasefire reached in October. In other update, US envoy Steve Witkoff, who had a hand in negotiating the ceasefire deal, will meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Tuesday. Witkoff and fellow envoy and Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, met with Netanyahu in late January and reportedly pushed for Rafah's reopening. And time now for another short break. We'll be back in a while. Welcome back. You're watching TT India News. I'm Lepak Shikuran, and on to some business news now. Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi faces a crucial market test in the final run-up to a snap election this weekend, where she is hoping a decisive victory will give her a mandate for expansionary fiscal policy. Well, the Finance Ministry will auction some 700 billion yen of 30-year government bonds on Thursday, 3 days before polls open. Auctions have been a particular flashpoint for investors, expressing concern about the state of Japan's finances, which are the worst in the developed world, with debt totaling to 30% of GDP. This will be the first 30-year debt sale since Takaichi called the snap election on January 19th and pledged the sales tax suspension, and bond markets are likely to be on the edge. And some global markets update now. In US, the S&P 500 closed higher on Monday, lifted by gains in chip makers and other companies related to artificial intelligence, while smaller companies also rose sharply. It was the S&P 500's first gain in 3 sessions, following recent worries about price evaluations of technology companies whose shares have soared in recent years on optimism about artificial intelligence. Now, the S&P 500 gained 0.54%, while the Nasdaq Composite gained 0.56%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average also rose by 1.05%. Gold and Asian stocks were on the rebound on Tuesday as trade took a calmer tone after wild swings in metal markets, with a mood helped overnight by a sharp jump in US factory activity. Well, Japanese and South Korean stocks rallied on Tuesday to claw back much of the previous day's huge losses suffered in an Asia-wide rout. Tokyo's Nikkei climbed 3.09% in early trade, while Seoul's Kospi jumped by 4.95%. And Elon Musk's SpaceX has taken over his artificial intelligence company xAI in a merger aimed at deploying space-based data centers. SpaceX and xAI are merging in a $1.25 trillion venture to create what Elon Musk describes as a highly ambitious, vertically integrated innovation engine both on and off Earth. The merger comes amid signs of strain in AI funding across big tech. SpaceX plans to deploy up to 1 million solar-powered satellites as orbital data centers to meet the rising energy demands of AI computing. The satellites will be launched using Starship rockets, which are expected to achieve 1 flight per hour, carrying 200 tons of payload. The deal illustrates Musk's effort to merge AI with his space and satellite ventures, using shared resources to speed AI progress and explore space-based data centers. Well, you're watching TT India News. Our time now for some sports news. CISA Vande Mataram Coastal Cyclothon 2026 reached Konark on Monday, marking a key halt in its nationwide coastal journey. Against the backdrop of the Konark Sun Temple, cyclists received a warm welcome with various cultural programs organized for the participants. Odisha Deputy Chief Minister Parvati Parida attended the event, highlighting community participation and coastal security awareness. Here's the report by DD India's Abhishek Mahajan.
Set against the iconic backdrop of the Konark Sun Temple, the Vande Mataram Cyclothon 2026 ceremony was held at Konark as part of the nationwide cycling campaign. Konark marked one of the key halts along the route as cyclists arrived to a warm welcome from local residents, participants, and invited guests. Addressing the gathering, Deputy Chief Minister of Odisha, Parvati Parida, emphasized the role of public participation in strengthening coastal security awareness and promoting collective responsibility among citizens.
हम लोगों को सौभाग्य है कि यूनेस्को साइड कोनार्क से ये साइक्लोथन शुरुआत हो रही है और आगे 28 दिन तक ये यात्रा चलेगी और तटवर्ती सुरक्षा के लेकर जो वार्ता उन लोगों ने देना चाहते हैं कि तट सुरक्षित रहेगी तभी हमारी देश सुरक्षित रहेगी। इस वार्ता को गांव-गांव में रुकेंगे और इस गांव को CISF अडॉप्ट करेगी और जन सचेतना के साथ कम्युनिटी के इन्वॉल्वमेंट के साथ ये साइक्लोथन अपनी अंतिम लक्ष्य में पहुंचेगी।
The cultural program organized for the participants highlighted Odisha's rich traditions and heritage. The cyclothon covers over 6,500 kilometers across the mainland coastline. With women personnel forming a significant part of the team, the initiative reflects endurance, discipline, and inclusive national service.
महिलाओं का एम्पावरमेंट के ऊपर काफ़ी ध्यान दिया जा रहा है और महिला काफ़ी डेवलप कर रहे हैं। स्पोर्ट्स एरियाज में देखिए, स्पोर्ट्स क्षेत्र में भी देखिए महिलाएं काफ़ी अच्छा कर रहे हैं हमारे इंडियन एथलीट। और इस पार्टिसिपेशन में आप देख लीजिए जो 6,500 किलोमीटर से ज़्यादा दूरी कवर कर रहे हैं। मेरे ख्याल से 33 महिलाओं एथलीट साइकिलिस्ट इस प्रोग्राम में शामिल हैं।
Through this event, the CISF is engaging coastal communities to raise awareness and strengthen cooperation at the grassroots level.
It has been wonderful. I'm thankful to the organization for giving such part, to make me include in such part. There are two teams basically. One is starting from Bakhali, another is starting from Lakpat Port. We all will be culminating at a point at Kochi Port. We both will be covering equal to 3,200 kilometers.
With its focus on community engagement and awareness, the Vande Mataram Cyclothon moves ahead along the eastern coast, reinforcing the message of collective responsibility in safeguarding the nation's coastline.
As the cyclothon moves forward along the eastern coast, the message from Konark is clear. Safeguarding the coastline is a collective effort driven by awareness, participation, and national commitment. With cameraman Rakesh Kumar, this is Abhishek Mahajan in Konark for DD India.
And India's women team will begin the title defense of Badminton Asia Team Championship in China without PV Sindhu, who has withdrawn from the tournament due to a niggle. Teenagers Tanvi Sharma, who was part of India's title-winning squad in 2024, and Unnati Huda have been named in the women team, along with Malvika Bansod. Commonwealth Games medalists Trisa Jolly and Gayatri Gopichand will lead the double challenge. India's women have been placed in Group 5 alongside Thailand and Myanmar. India's men have been drawn in Group C with Japan and Singapore. Each group stage tie will comprise 5 rubbers, 3 singles and 2 doubles, with the top 2 teams from each group advancing to the quarter-finals. Tournament runs from 3rd to 8th of February in Qingdao, city of China, but India will begin the campaign on Wednesday. And an Australian Open champion, Carlos Alcaraz, has withdrawn from the Rotterdam Open beginning next week. World number 1 Alcaraz had secured the ATP 500 event title last season, beating Alex de Minaur in the finals, but he pulled out, citing exertions over the last 2 weeks during the Australian Open. The organisers posted on X, and I quote, Carlos Alcaraz won't defend his title in Rotterdam. The Australian Open champion concluded that after his exertions over the past 2 weeks, he needs more time to return to action, unquote. Now, the top-ranked stars like Alexander Zverev, Felix Auger, Aliassime and de Minaur will feature in the competition set to take place from 9th to the 15th of February. Alcaraz became the youngest player at the age of 22 to complete a career Grand Slam after clinching the Australian Open on Sunday. And thousands of dancers celebrated Peru's cultural heritage in Lima during the festivity of Our Lady of Candelaria, a UNESCO-recognized tradition originally from Puno and adopted by the capital in 2022. It is known for its vibrant folkloric costumes and dances depicting rural life and biblical themes. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.